Welcome to the province of Teruel in northeastern Spain at the start of a new campaign in the Motul FIM Superbike World Championship. It's the first time since 2004 that the season opener has taken place in Europe, Phillip Island having dropped from the calendar. And although we remain unfortunately behind closed doors and without spectators for now, we're just under half an hour away from the start of the 2021 season. Motorland Aragon is one of 3 Spanish venues that will appear on the calendar this year, but it is historically the most used. No less than 25 races have been held on this 5.1 kilometre circuit over a 10-year period, and our 2021 cohort have recently taken part in 2 pre-season tests here. Long straights and heavy braking zones guarantee overtaking, and Motorland didn't disappoint in no less than 6 races last season. The toughest on the brakes is turn 1 at the end of the 630-metre start-finish straight, with riders dropping from over 275 kilometres per hour to just 90 in little more than 4 seconds. A couple of moments ago, we saw Chaz Davies race 2 pass from the 2020 Aragon round that saw him claim the lead from Jonathan Rea. Here's how Rea responded on his way to victory, neatly through at turn 4, a passing place he patented last season. The second half of the lap is a high-speed affair. Bikes approaching 320 kilometres per hour down the back straight. They drop to less than half of that at the apex of turns 16 and 17, presenting another opportunity at the end of the lap. Michael Ruben Rinaldi passed Jonathan Rea there for victory in race 1 of the 2020 Teruel round, but Rea's race lap record still stands, a blistering 149.62. Good afternoon and welcome to a sunny, if not sweltering, Motorland Aragon. It's been a long wait, but we're finally going racing. Race 1 of the 2021 Pirelli Aragon round coming up this afternoon after a pulsating Tissot Superpole this morning. Lap record pace, our lead duo from 2020 getting back in the ring to slug it out for pole. Strong laps from Alex Lowe's on a race tyre that make him the dark horse for this race. Steve English alongside me. Superpole was breathless, and there's plenty to get our teeth into again here.
18 laps of action upcoming at Aragon, and over the course of the full season, I really expect this to be one of the closest championships we've had for a very long time. We know that Ducati's going to be strong. We know Jonathan Rea is going to be strong. Yamaha look more competitive again this year. Honda have made a big step forward. We're really eyeing up a real class season, I think, this year.
And those photographers are not just bird and cat watching, they are looking ahead to this session honest as they nestle in the bushes and looking to capture the perfect shots. A reminder for those of you just joining us of the Superpole results from earlier on today will be Jonathan Rea, who starts from top spot, the 28th pole position of his career and his 3rd in a row around Motorland Aragon. But over a race distance, he should have plenty of rivals. Most closely in the context of the championship, Scott Redding, who finished number 2 behind him in 2020, will start second to Jonathan Rea on the grid, and 3 different manufacturers in the top 3 positions, with Tom Sykes completing the front row. I mentioned Alex Lowe's a couple of moments ago. Fine performance from him in the early stage of the session to set the benchmark time. He will start in 4th. Now a satellite rider, Chaz Davies, will go 5th. Garrett Gerloff, the top Yamaha performer, will start in 6th. And the top Honda is Leon Haslam in 7th. Good variety in terms of riders up towards the front of the field, and a very competitive lineup we've got for WorldSBK in the 2021 campaign. A real strong top 10 who would all consider themselves realistic contenders for regular podiums, race victories, and potentially even the championship. But if 9 of them want to take it, they've got to get the better of this man, Jonathan Rea.
Yeah, they've got to make sure that they can take on the king, because Jonathan Rea over the years really has been able to establish himself as that consistent force. Week in, week out, he's able to get good results. Jonathan doesn't really look at it from a race-by-race perspective. He looks at it but from a round-by-round perspective. That's what Parariba has drilled into him over the years, and it certainly made the big difference for him to be able to come away from each triple race weekend of being able to come away with as many points as possible.
Yes, absolutely. Jonathan Rea, 34 years of age now, and took the crown by a 55-point margin in 2020. And you mentioned that score per round, average score of 45 points per round in 2020 for Jonathan Rea. 6 seasons with Kawasaki, 6 World Championships.
Yeah, he's been unbeatable since he went to Kawasaki, but he's had to work for it the last couple of years. Scott Redding put him a big challenge up to him last year. Obviously, Alvaro Bautista the year before really put himself in a position to win that championship. It was all but impossible for Rea to pick up the championship, but just by keeping that pressure on all the way through the season, Rea was able to come out on top. But there have been cracks appearing within that dynamic over the last couple of years, where it's just been harder and harder for Kawasaki to get the most out of their package to be able to take on the Ducatis.
Kawasaki have made changes to their machinery as far as 2021 is concerned, and hope that that will keep them in front of this man, Scott Redding, their most direct rival, the reigning world number 2, who actually led the championship after 11 of the 24 races in 2020. Steve, it's now been 10 years since Ducati's last World Championship, and they're looking to Scott Redding as the man to restore them. Can he do it in his second season in WorldSBK?
That's the $1 million question right now, and it's the $1 million question because Ducati got rid of Chaz Davis. They said, let's put all of our eggs in the Scott Redding basket. Scott's the man that can win this World Championship for us. They brought in Michael Ruben Rinaldi on the other side of the pit box. Chaz Davis ended up having to find a new home. He ended up finding a home on a Ducati, but inside a satellite operation at Go 11. And Davis looks very relaxed with that transition that he's made. He's able to have a lot more freedom with what he wants to do, and that could make all the difference.
Scott Redding over a quarter of a second back from Jonathan Rea in Tissot Superpole just after 11 o'clock here this morning. This is Garrett Gerloff, the Texan, now in his second season with GRT Yamaha, put in some much acclaimed performances and secured his first 2 podium finishes in the second half of 2020. Yamaha resisting the temptation to promote him in order to maintain some continuity within their junior team GRT.
Yeah, and certainly for Gerloff, there was a lot of calls to say he should have been put onto the factory seat for next year. But when you ask him about it, he says, you know what, I'm getting the exact same machinery as them. I've got a team around me that he really respects, he really enjoys working with. He's got a crew chief that he's been able to learn a lot from. So for him, this actually seems like the ideal scenario.
So it's Garrett Gerloff who will start from 6th position on the second row of the grid as the top Yamaha, and I think that's a fair reflection of the pace throughout this weekend. Toprak Razgatlioglu was demoted, had his fastest lap time cancelled through Superpole earlier on today, but Gerloff did have the measure of Razgatlioglu, who on occasion this weekend has been the fastest man out there, hasn't been able to string consistent laps together along the lines of the likes of Jonathan Rea and Alex Lowes, who seem to have focused largely on long run pace. And they've certainly had it, haven't they?
Yeah, over the course of yesterday's running in the cooler conditions, Toprak very impressive, Gerloff very impressive as well. Whenever it started to heat up a bit, it became a bit more of a struggle for the Yamaha riders. All bikes tend to struggle as the temperature increases here in Aragon, but certainly the Yamaha's affected by it a little bit more than some of the other bikes. Kawasaki's have a good wide operating range, same as the Ducatis.
Former British champion Alex Lowes, 30 years of age from Great Britain and 2019 bronze medalist. This now his second season alongside Jonathan Rea with KRT. He's had the grounding year to establish himself and to get to grips with the Kawasaki. 2021, he'll want to really take the fight to the world champion.
Yeah, I think for Lowes the big thing really is week in, week out to be able to just get the maximum out of that Kawasaki. He's shown this weekend he's got a really good turn of speed. What he was able to do in the Superpole session with his first flying lap was very impressive. A time good enough to qualify 4th on the grid before everyone put their qualifiers in as well. So he's obviously got the speed. He's won races in the past. He obviously won the season at the season opening round in Phillip Island last year for Kawasaki. Ever since then, it was a little bit up and down through the season as he learned the ins and outs of that bike. Now he really needs to be able to put all those lessons to good use over the course of a full season.
Here is Tom Sykes, Mr. Superpole himself. He hasn't found himself in the top 3 positions all weekend, but is able to deliver over a single lap when it matters. He's got on to the front row. Sykes, who effectively won a shootout with Eugene Laverty to keep his place on the BMW Motorrad team for 2021. The challenge for him now is he's got to go up against Michael van der Mark, and that really is a tall order for Tom Sykes at this stage in his career.
Yeah, van der Mark, a really strong racer, not really known for his one-lap pace, his qualifying efforts, but certainly whenever we get into Saturdays and Sundays and race days, that's whenever he really does start to shine. It's going to take him a bit of time, though, to learn that BMW, so Sykes does have a bit of a leg up on him.
Master of Motorland himself, Chaz Davis. Really still odd to see him in light blue after 7 seasons in red. The Welshman, subject of what was effectively a straight swap with his replacement Michael Ruben Rinaldi on the factory Ducati. Davies the reigning world number 3, and now with Go 11. This will be his 10th season in the top flight, and all the records around this circuit belong to Chaz Davies.
Yeah, Davis has always been so impressive here in Aragon. It just works well around this track, suits his style. And you'd certainly think that he's a good outside bet for the championship. Going to Go 11 team, he knows the bike, he's got a good team around him, good personnel, and he's very motivated to go out and prove Ducati wrong.
Alvaro Bautista pipped to the post in qualifying by Leon Haslam. He was beaten by Haslam, I think, 5 times during Superpole sessions last season, but he's right alongside his teammate on the third row of the grid, the Spanish veteran, and of course another former MotoGP regular. Now in his 3rd season in WorldSBK, his 2nd season with Team HRC, and for riders on those Hondas, as for the riders on the BMWs, they're banking on that project coming to fruition if they're to challenge towards the front, because certainly those bikes haven't been regular podium finishers in the last couple of seasons.
Well, I think especially for Honda, that's going to be a seat that's going to be very in demand whenever the rider market starts to spin up during the course of the summer. Leon Camier, of course, going in to manage that team, and that's going to be a key factor as well. Camier obviously knows exactly what the riders need in terms of what it feels like on Pirelli tyres, what you need to do around each of these racetracks. That gives them a bit of an advantage for trying to liaise between the technical side and also the riders. Alvaro Bautista said, you know what, it's great to have someone like Camier there. He knows exactly what a rider wants, and that can really help push the project forward.
Alvaro Bautista then will be starting from 8th position on the grid. Alongside him will be Leon Haslam, who starts in 7th. Just confirmation along the bottom of your screen that Jonathan Rea won the Pirelli Best Lap Award in 2020 for the largest number of fastest laps. Never talks too much about statistics, but there is a big one up for grabs here this afternoon, and that's the 100th victory. He's been made to sweat on that for a little while, as Jonathan Rea couldn't get it done in the closing stages of 2020, when it really would have been the perfect way to cap off another record-breaking season with the 6th world title as well.
Yeah, it was hanging over his head at the end of last year, but I think and you can see Eugene Laverty taking that long lap penalty. We saw that come into effect during the Supersport 300 race. But just going back to JR as well, he was talking in terms of the pressure that comes from wanting to get those milestones out of the way. He's at 7 months now where he's been basically had that as one of the targets for him during the course of the winter. But at the end of last season, the problem for him was Kawasaki lost their edge. You went to Catalunya, Magny-Cours, Estoril. That bike wasn't the dominant bike that it had been in the past. They'd been caught and they'd been passed by quite a few bikes. The advantage for Kawasaki is week in, week out, it can be in the ballpark at every racetrack, whereas the other manufacturers haven't quite had that edge in the recent years.
Every racetrack and in different conditions as well, varying temperatures, the Kawasaki can still deliver pretty much regardless, and they have made an upgrade, as I mentioned previously, for 2021, a new front fairing and some aerodynamic parts that will give them some extra downforce, and that in particular is aimed at giving them a better feeling at the front of the machine.
Yeah, and the big thing for Kawasaki is just small incremental changes. They haven't done what you can see with Leon Haslam here on the Honda, bring out an all-new bike recently. Kawasaki is very much an evolution of a bike that's been around for the last 6, 7, 8 years. It's still got very much the same basic building blocks for it. They've made some improvements, made some changes, and they really do just chip away year in, year out just to try and find that little bit more performance.
Leon Haslam we caught a glimpse of there, the 2018 British champion. He, alongside Alvaro Bautista, entering now his 2nd season in this project with Team HRC. So as Leon Haslam will be hoping to continue to move forward, both riders clearly looking to stake their claims for the future as well, and Haslam in particular will be considering that. He will be starting on the 3rd row of the grid here today, looking to get off to a strong start to the season. Well, this is a season opener, a little bit more reflective of what we might see for the rest of the campaign than what we normally have in Phillip Island, which is one of those barnstorming, unpredictable race weekends, but doesn't necessarily act as a barometer at the start of a campaign.
Yeah, but I hope we end up with the same kind of race and we always get at Phillip Island for the season opener. But you are right, Alex, Phillip Island very much a pack racing circuit. Every bike seems to work quite well there. The riders have 2 days of testing beforehand. They're all in the ballpark, and we all end up with really close racing all the way through. It's always interesting to see what happens whenever we come back to the first European round. That could be here in Aragon, it could be Assen, wherever it is. You suddenly start to see a much clearer picture develop of what to expect through the year. Right now, all we know is all the front runners seem to be finding good form right off the bat. But what's it going to be like over the course of 18 laps?
The assembled throng around Jonathan Rea, your 2020 world champion. 11 race wins from 24 races last season. 3 of those victories actually here in Motorland Aragon. And as I said previously, world champion, bidding for his 100th career victory this afternoon, and a record that eluded him in the final 4 races of last season.
Yeah, certainly for Jonathan Rea, you can see the stats there. 1 and 3 race wins, 1 and 2 podiums. That's the consistency that he brings to the fore, and that's why he's so difficult to beat over the course of a full season.
17 consecutive podiums around this circuit, Motorland Aragon. So much for it being a Ducati track. Jonathan Rea should be up there and with the best of them over the course of this weekend, and looking to come out of the box immediately firing as he goes from pole position. Scott Redding lines up alongside him then, P2. A race 1 crash, remember, in the Teruel round last season proved the turning point in Redding's 2020 campaign. Conceded 32 points to Jonathan Rea over 2 weekends at this venue. Was only defeated by 55, as I said previously, over the course of the full campaign. Redding can't afford to drop points in Aragon this time around.
Can't afford to drop points here in Aragon. Needs to come away with 3 real solid podium finishes, good points paying rules all the way through this weekend.
Completing the front row, Tom Sykes, 35 years of age and heading into his 14th World Championship season. Second in the sport's all-time appearance list. The 2013 World Champion hopes to recapture the glory days in what is now Season 3 of this BMW project.
Season 3 of the BMW project, a whole new bike for it though. This is where they've invested an awful lot. They spent big money to get Michael van der Mark on board. Now they really need to be able to take advantage of that and get the results that they need.
Another watch for Jonathan Rea's collection, his 28th pole position here in Motorland Aragon, and 3 in a row, of course, because he had 2 here last season, as well as that pole position secured earlier on here today. But Rea will be looking to do it over the full race distance. He wasn't the fastest on the race tyre in the early stages of the session. That honour went to this man, Alex Lowes, who starts 4th on the grid. Top scorer the opening round of the 2020 season, remember. He subsequently faded to 6th in his first season with Kawasaki. He was 3rd overall in 2019. 3rd in the Super Pole race, his only podium from 19 races in Motorland Aragon. This will be his 20th race around this circuit.
What was good down the grid there, you can see Florian Marino down there as well. Florian going to be working with Alex all the way through the season, so a good experienced hand to help him just find that little bit more performance.
Winner of the final race in 2020, Chaz Davies, finished on the championship podium in 5 of the last 6 seasons. 3 silver, 2 bronze. The gold still eludes him. He makes his debut with Team Go 11 this afternoon.
Lots of experience, knows the bike inside out, needs to come away without making a big mistake this weekend, but Davis has looked excellent all the way through free practice in the Super Pole session. So
row number 1, Jonathan Rea, Scott Redding and Tom Sykes. Row 2 will be Alex Lowes, Chaz Davies and Garrett Gerloff. Gerloff 6th position then, and 11th in 2020 in the World Championship, having finished with a flourish in Barcelona and Estoril, but he struggled early in the season. Aragon, to be fair, wasn't the happiest of hunting grounds for Garrett Gerloff, so this weekend a good yardstick to measure his improvements.
The one thing for Gerloff is last year in Aragon he was closer to the lead Yamaha than anywhere up to that point in the year, so this is a track where he felt that he made a big step last year, really wants to carry that forward today.
3rd row of the grid features Leon Haslam, Alvaro Bautista and Michael Ruben Rinaldi. Haslam here has a great record in Aragon, 19 top 10 finishes in 19 starts at this venue. Enjoyed his best race finish of 2020 and his highest points yield here, so we'll fancy his chances of a strong 2021 season opener. Let's hear the thoughts of the Team HRC team manager for 2021, Leon Camia.
Leon, great to see you down here for the first race of the season, first race of a new adventure for you. How did you see the guys this morning in Super Pole?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't an easy Super Pole, but to be honest, a lot of the work's gone into race pace more than one lap pace. So I think for the race, Alvaro's looking pretty good. His race pace has been quite consistent, and yeah, definitely strong. We'll see what happens in the race, though. You know, as I said. First race of the season, everyone's a little bit nervous, a bit G'd up and ready to get going, so we'll see how it goes.
It's getting quite hot out here right now, perhaps close to what we saw in FP2. How did they feel then?
Yeah, FP2, as I said, like a lot of the work was done for race pace in that session, and yeah, Alvaro's looking pretty strong on that. Only some sort of fine tweaks have been made since then. Leon's made some steps over the weekend as well, made a good step, a little bit off at the minute for consistency, but I think this is something everyone's struggling with, you know, hot conditions on Friday. So we'll see how it goes.
Best of luck, Leon.
Thank you. Thank you.
an all-red third row of the grid, 2 Hondas and a Ducati. Alvaro Bautista, who Leon was talking about there, he will be lining up from P8. Now, Aragon statistically is the Spaniard's best circuit over his 2 seasons in World SBK, 3 wins in 2019, and of course he was world number 2 that year. So watch out for Bautista as we see what he can do. Michael Ruben Rinaldi just still getting into position on the grid, so we move on to row 4. Toprak, Razgatlioglu, Tito Rabat and Eugene Laverty. We saw there Razgatlioglu, reigning world number 4, 9 times a podium finisher last season. The aim for him now is consistency, and that's got to start this weekend in Aragon. He's never finished higher than 5th in 11 races here.
Yeah, for Toprak, we saw him down there with Keenan Safoglu as mentor and also Phil Marin as crew chief. Those 2 guys have made a big impact on Toprak. We've seen a big change in him over the last few years. He's training harder, he's really applying himself well, and when you talk to the team from a technical perspective, he's made a big step forward.
Back to Michael Ruben Rinaldi, who is now on his seat and just about ready to go. Back at the scene of his debut win here in Aragon, 259 days on, and now a Ducati factory rider scored 42% of his 2020 points around this circuit. So certainly optimistic of a good start to this campaign.
And I think for Rinaldi, he seems quite relaxed about it as well. We bumped into him out for dinner on Thursday before the weekend really starts, and he seemed very chilled. He was very much focused on being able to get the most from himself.
Tito Rabat, the 2014 Moto2 world champion, makes his World SBK debut after 5 seasons in MotoGP. In 2020, Barney Racing suffered their worst season since joining the Superbike class in 2015. Rabat, the man charged with turning their fortunes around.
Tito, a man under pressure as well to be able to get good results. Qualifying 11th on the grid, actually a pretty solid effort from him given the way that the winter's gone.
Completing row number 4 will be Eugene Laverty in 12th position. Once again, we've got Anthony Nelson down on the grid. I think he's got Jonathan Rea.
Johnny, final thoughts before the first race of the season. It's starting to get pretty hot out there. You've got an FP2 under the hotter conditions. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel quite good. I feel like we've done our homework, but it's also the unknown for everybody. Everyone starts from zero now, but I'm pretty excited. You know, I just want to concentrate on making a good start and put my rhythm and see what that is. If that's enough to stay in the front, great. And if not, then we have tomorrow. But I'm pretty excited.
Best of luck, Johnny.
Thank you.
Many thanks to Jonathan Rea for giving up his valuable time and giving us an insight moments before the start. An 18-lap race, of course, ahead of us here this afternoon. We continue on through the grid. We start to see some of our less experienced riders as far as past World SBK appearances are concerned. This is Luca Mayas, the Frenchman who claimed his first World Supersport win here in Aragon on his way to the 2017 World title. 2 previous appearances as substitute rider for Pedicini in 2016. The sum of his previous World Superbike experience.
Yeah, lots of experience though for Lucas. Obviously a world champion in both endurance and also in Supersport. Now getting the opportunity to make the step up full-time onto a Superbike.
24 years of age, Andrea Locatelli, the Italian, makes his Superbike debut this afternoon. Fast-tracked into the Pata Yamaha outfit after really wiping the floor with his rivals in Supersport in 2020. 2 poles and 4 race wins. He had an unbeaten weekend in Aragon a year ago.
Yeah, and for Andrea Locatelli last season, it counts for nothing now. He's got to make sure he's able to adapt to that Superbike. If he's able to come away with top 10 finishes early doors in the season, it's actually a really good start to his Superbike career. The goal really has to be just to make sure you're able to learn as much as possible here in Aragon, put it into practice over the course of the next few rounds.
Completing row number 5 will be Michael van der Mark. A major surprise that he finds himself as far back as he does, although he's not conventionally a strong qualifier. This is his first appearance on board BMW machinery after 4 years in Yamaha Blue. The 2014 Supersport World Champion, a top 8 overall finisher in each of his 6 Superbike seasons to date, a race winner in each of the last 3. Great to see that tribute on his leathers as well for Nicky Hayden, 4 years since the sad passing of Hayden.
Yeah, for Michael van der Mark, always riding with that 69 on his leathers in tribute to his former teammate and good friend. But certainly for van der Mark, it's been a pretty tricky start to his BMW tenure. He had a big crash in yesterday's free practice session, lost all of free practice 2, lost most of free practice 3 as well with some issues. So for van der Mark, it really is a case of trying to just get to the flag today, get the miles under your belt and see what you're able to learn.
So that brings to a conclusion then our top 15. Mayas, Locatelli and van der Mark on the 5th row. Row 6 will be Puritan Azane, Christophe Ponsant and Jonas Folger. Row 7, Isaac Viñales, Axel Bassani after a Superpole crash, and Samuele Cavalieri, Tati Mercado and Loris Cresson will complete our 23-rider grid. So that's a look at the grid for race 1 of the 2021 Pirelli Aragon round. 3 manufacturers in the top 3 places. The top Yamaha of Gerloff on row 2 and lead Honda, Leon Haslam 1 place behind him. This is the class of 2021 in full.
Animal ambition in the world of smoke and mirrors, man, I think I'm a magician. Cause it's easy to make magic, but when it's right or wrong, it's much harder to make decisions. All I need is the green light. If you ain't ready, you'll get left, cause I promise my team ride, and we ready for whatever. If wings are made of feathers, then let's let our soul fly like we all on the same flight. Nothing but victorious. B.I.G. we must be notorious. P.I.C.'s the selfies looking glorious. It's hard to capture the strength of a million warriors. So my attitude is DeLorean. Back to the future. If you don't shoot, you don't score. And this is war, so make sure they salute ya. So much adrenaline, there ain't no ignoring us. Tell me, can we live? Tell me, can we breathe? Cause we'll sacrifice sleep if it means staying awake. Will help us live the dream. All we need is the green light. If you ain't ready, you'll get left, cause I promise my team ride, and we ready for whatever. If wings are made of feathers, then let's let our soul fly like we all on the same flight. Tell me, can we live? Tell me, can we breathe? Cause we'll sacrifice sleep if it means staying awake. Will help us live the dream. All we need is the green light. If you ain't ready, you'll get left, cause I promise my team ride, and we ready for whatever. If wings are made of feathers, then let's let our soul fly like we all on the same flight.
You rejoin us in commentary moments before the warm-up lap here at the Pirelli Aragon round. 2 minutes until the scheduled start time for an 18-lap race. Jonathan Rea will lead them away from pole, reigning world number 2 Scott Redding alongside him, and a strong supporting class behind. Don't go anywhere. Race 1 of the 2021 campaign. 13 rounds, 39 races, 23 riders, 12 nationalities, 5 manufacturers, and only 1 world champion. The journey to the 2021 world title begins here in Motorland Aragon. Jonathan Rea chasing his 100th Superbike race victory. He hasn't won a season opener since 2017. The likes of Scott Redding, Chaz Davies and Toprak Razgatlioglu among the men looking to end Rea's unprecedented run of 6 consecutive world titles. A long winter wait, but we're back on track. Steve English alongside me. 3 different manufacturers on the front row of the grid. Couldn't have asked for a much better setup after Superpole earlier on this morning.
An ideal Superpole session. We were expecting Jonathan Rea and Scott Redding to be 2 of the title contenders all the way through this season. They're first and second on the grid. Tom Sykes gives BMW a lot of reason for optimism, at least in the Superpole session. But the big question is going to be, how long will it take for everyone else to clear Tom Sykes? The likes of this man, Chaz Davies, he's been fast all the way through practice sessions. He's going to start from 5th on the grid. He needs to make sure he's right there with Scott Redding and Jonathan Rea at the start.
I've called Chaz Davies the master of Motorland, the only rider to ever have won here in Aragon from outside of the top 5 on the grid. That doesn't bode particularly well for the likes of Gerloff in 6th or Rinaldi in 9th, but Chaz Davies is up inside the top 5 positions on the grid this season. Master of this circuit, secured the first podium of his career here in 2012, and 7 victories from his 23 starts here in Motorland Aragon. Surely he's a man to watch.
Took his first ever Ducati win here as well, and certainly for Chaz Davies, this is a track that really does play to experience. If you understand the nuances of it, you can make up an awful lot of time. Davies has been able to do that over the years, and while other riders have caught up to him, he's still got such a unique style in certain areas of this track that he can use to his advantage. There's a few really key overtaking opportunities. Turn 1's an obvious one, the last corner as well, but there's a few places where if you carry the corner speed through the previous couple of corners, you can be very aggressive and try and make some moves. Davies knows this, and he also knows that he has to make quick progress.
There is Jonathan Rea's statistical record. He's already top, of course, for wins and podiums. He said at the end of last season that although he doesn't tend to look at statistics in too much detail, even he's aware that 100 is a massive milestone and one he's eager to achieve. His last victory in Manicourt last season couldn't quite get it over the line to take that 100th and complete the century. He'll be looking to do so this afternoon.
He wants to get that monkey off his back straight off the bat. But the problem for Jonathan is you're here in Aragon. He obviously had a race win here last year, but this isn't an ideal track for the Kawasaki. That's why they focused all winter on making small improvements to their bike. The biggest thing they were trying to improve was through these long corners at the end of the lap. As you open the gas, that you've got full confidence to really be aggressive with it. That seems to be where they made their progress. Now's the proof of the pudding is going to be in the eating.
Two main pinch points to watch out for as far as incidents in the early stages. Turn 1, it's a very tight, it's a heavy braking zone, and then it's a very tight first turn. And turn 2, where we've seen plenty of crashes already this weekend.
We saw plenty of crashes in the Super Pole session for cold front tyres as they get onto that right-hand side of the tyre. So for these riders, they know the importance of getting through the first couple of corners cleanly. It's a long race, 18 laps. You want to make sure you can get through those first few corners and then give yourself a good chance.
Green flag then at the back of the grid. Riders settling down. First action of 2021. Race 1 of the 2021 Pirelli Aragon round gets underway. Good start from Jonathan Rea, who'll surge to the first turn. Alongside him, though, Scott Redding has made a decent jump. Brilliant getaway from Alex Lowes, who comes around the outside of Scott Redding and up into second position to make it a KRT 1-2. Redding will look to respond. Tom Sykes already relegated to fourth position. That was a brilliant jump from Lowes, following in the tyre tracks of Jonathan Rea to lead us early on. Garrett Gerloff then sits in fifth position, with Chaz Davies having been relegated down to sixth. So Gerloff, the Texan, has already come through on 1. He's going to now make it 2. As he goes side by side with Tom Sykes. A new order at the front of the field. It's Rea from Lowes, from Redding, and look at Razgatlioglu diving through from 10th on the grid, remember, Toprak, and he's picked off now Tom Sykes. Sykes will get bundled out of the way by Chaz Davies. So just as we expected, Tom Sykes, the Super Pole expert, is falling through the field, and his rivals not sparing his blushes at all as he tumbles backwards through the order.
Yeah, great starts from Toprak and from Lowes. Lowes made some changes to that bike over the winter to try and improve himself off that line, and it's clearly paid off in this one. Chaz Davies making pretty quick progress to recover as well. He's just gone through on Toprak.
Yes, not the best of starts from Chaz Davies on the light blue number 7 Ducati, but he has recovered P5, which is where he started on the grid, and that despite the resurgence of Razgatlioglu, who's already come from 10th to 6th as they make their way through the chicane. Then major passing place as they come through towards the final 2 turns here in Motorland Aragon, the longest straight on the circuit. Michael Ruben Rinaldi, among the lightest riders, will hope to capitalise on that. On the tail, though, of Alvaro Bautista, who is similar in stature, and there's no way through there for the moment at least. Rinaldi then held back in 9th position, and a bad start for Alvaro Bautista to drop to the fringes of the top 10. Back at the front of the field, Alex Lowes is starting to stalk Jonathan Rea. These two have been pretty evenly matched throughout this weekend so far. It's Lowes who's on the front foot as things stand. It's Rea, though, who was faster in the opening sectors of that previous lap and has been able to build a buffer. We're watching the fight for 5th position. Toprak Razgatlioglu all over the tail of Chaz Davies.
Think back to last year, it was in these early stages of the race that Lowes was able to go with Jonathan Rea before having a big high side on the exit of turn 3. He goes well here in Aragon. Now he's been able to latch onto the back of his teammate. Chaz Davies, though, he's going to start to get impatient now. Wants to make sure he can get through in Garrett Gerloff as quickly as possible.
Yes, Scott Redding has already dropped a second back from Alex Lowes. That gap between second and third places, so Redding has not got the pace at this stage of the race. He's holding up Gerloff, and that in turn is affecting Chaz Davies, with Razgatlioglu bottled up behind him as well. We've got a 4-rider fight for third position early on as Jonathan Rea and Alex Lowes duke it out, slug it out, the two men in the green out in the top 2 positions. Rea then from Lowes, then a gap to Redding, who is ahead of Gerloff, Davies and Razgatlioglu. Tom Sykes, after suffering initial cuts left, right and centre, has now stemmed the bleeding and consolidated 7th place ahead of Leon Haslam, although Sykes has got really wide there, sweeps back across the circuit just to defend against Leon Haslam. Something of a separate battle developing for 7th place. Sykes just about coming back through on Haslam, with Rinaldi and Bautista in close attendance as well. Bit of a moment there coming on to the back straight from Jonathan Rea. This could be the opportunity that Alex Lowes needs then. He'll be in the slipstream. He's gaining. Alex Lowes looks to the inside through the left-hander but can't get there. It's Jonathan Rea who holds on. He has to go a little bit deeper, though, into the final 2 turns. Lowes then will try and get the move done back into turn 1 at the start of lap number 3. It's Jonathan Rea who's got a bit of a get-out-of-jail-free card there, because he looked to be a little bit out of shape, a little bit more ragged than we're used to seeing from Rea. Lowes struggling to get it stopped there into turn number 1 at the start of lap number 3. It's Rea from Lowes, it's Redding from Gerloff, but Gerloff only just just ahead of Chaz Davies. There might be an opportunity for Davies to come through here into turn number 4. He was stalking his prey last lap around on Garrett Gerloff. Can't quite get there for the moment at least.
Let's see if he's able to just be a little bit aggressive now at this point. See if he can set something up on the run into the corkscrew. Davis able to get down the inside, use that drive as well. Just got the tyre sheet from Pirelli. Davis is on the X tyre, so is Toprak and Gerloff. Redding is using the SC0, the same tyre as the Kawasaki riders, but those Kawasaki riders are able to use it an awful lot better at this stage of the race.
They went either side there of Garrett Gerloff. Chaz Davies coming through. Gerloff was ever so slightly offline, and Davies really punished him for it. And Razgatlioglu, who's never afraid of an unorthodox overtaking approach, comes sweeping on through. So it's Rea and Lowe's out in front, breaking clear. 1.5 seconds now the gap as Redding struggles with that harder rubber on lap number 3. Davies then up into 4th position. Next he'll try to get through on Redding, and then we'll see if he can bridge the gap to the top 2. This is the fight between the top 2 Yamaha men. Razgatlioglu through on Gerloff for 5th. The Texan hasn't given up just yet. Still only 2 seconds covering our lead sextet.
It's really interesting that the Kawasaki's both went with the SC0 tyre, a harder race tyre. They clearly feel very comfortable in these kind of track conditions. We've got 37 degrees track temperature, so quite cool for Motorland Aragon. Scott Redding's got no choice. He has to use the 0. He can't make the X tyre last. It's a 10-lap Superpole race tyre. His extra weight really does penalise him, but Chaz Davis is also round about the same weight. Davis is trying to use that X tyre.
WorldSBK debutant Tito Rabata's dropped off our timing screen, so I wonder whether that's a transponder issue or indeed something has happened to Rabat around the circuit. We may catch up with that shortly. In the meanwhile, diving through on the inside, Chaz Davies there found out by Razgatlioglu into turn 1. So Davies dropping back to 5th position. Razgatlioglu on the march has already picked off Gerloff, comes through on the Welshman as well. Chaz Davies for 4th position, and he's hoping now to succeed where Davies couldn't before, and that's passing Scott Redding for 3rd position.
Toprak's going to be able to make a move. He's got that extra grip with the X tyre, and he's got a lot of confidence in these conditions. When the track temperature gets a little bit hotter, only 5, 6, 7, 8 degrees more, that's when the Yamaha was really starting to struggle yesterday. But for Toprak, he did a 17-lap run in free practice 2. He knows what happens when that tyre starts to degrade, and that's giving him a lot of confidence to know how hard to push at this stage.
We have had confirmation now that it's a technical problem for Tito Rabat, who pulled up out and around the circuit, and we now catch up with Rabat, so he will be our first retirement from race 1 of the 2021 season. We're deep into lap number 4 with Jonathan Rea leading the way ahead of Alex Lowe's, and Lowe's is certainly keeping Rea honest. Look at the gap between them, there's not much in it at all, less than 1/4 of a second. Scott Redding then in 3rd is now over 2 seconds back from Lowe's in 3rd position. Razgatlioglu and Davies will be desperate to get through, otherwise it's very quickly going to turn into a race for 3rd. Onto the start-finish straight then, at the start of onto the straight then once again with Alex Lowe's tracking the tail of Jonathan Rea. Don't think he's quite close enough to capitalise on that slipstream for the moment at least, but there's not much in it.
Well, you can see last time around Lowe's pulled in 0.5 of a second. He pulled in most of that time in the final sector, obviously able to use that slipstream to close himself up on Jonathan Rea. But the big thing for Lowe's is he's able to study what his teammates doing. He's able to keep an eye on that. You can see both sides of the pit box there giving encouragement to their rider. But right now the big thing for them is they've pulled out almost 3 seconds on Scott Redding. Redding under attack from Toprak.
Toprak Razgatlioglu through at turn 1. We've just caught the end of that. So Scott Redding has been hemorrhaging time over the 3 most recent laps, and finally the number 54 is released. Razgatlioglu has successively picked off Gerloff, Davies, and now Redding. So Davies will be the next one in line to try and make his move on Scott Redding. The opportunity knocks here for Toprak to escape away if Redding holds back Davies for another few corners or so.
Yeah, and that's why Chaz Davis is going to know that on that number 7 machine he has to attack Scott Redding's Ducati. These were teammates last year. Chaz Davis dumped by the Ducati team. He really wants to give them the reason to remember exactly how good he could be. And for Chaz Davis, he's just stalking behind Scott Redding right now, but he's going to make that move pretty soon.
Lap 5 of 18 here in Motorland Aragon. We ride on board with Scott Redding on the tail of Toprak Razgatlioglu, who sits in 3rd position. 2.5 seconds now, the gap between Alex Lowe's in 2nd and Razgatlioglu in 3rd, as we see again the move that took the Turkish rider into 3rd position.
Yeah, nice clean move from Toprak on the 54 machine, able to get down the inside, and didn't actually cost each other too much time with that move. It's very easy to bundle your way past into turn 1, cost each other a lot of time, and let Chaz Davis in behind close that gap down. It was good riding from Toprak.
So Alex Lowe's is keeping Jonathan Rea honest. but will he get an opportunity to find his way through? Inevitably, these are two very evenly matched machines, and this weekend so far they've been very evenly matched riders as well. It's all closing up behind for third position between Top Rack Scott Redding and Chaz Davies. Davies very close to the tail of Redding, and further back Alvaro Bautista has finally got through on Tom Sykes. So having already picked off Leon Haslam, Haslam just couldn't get past Tom Sykes for all he was worth. Bautista's been a little bit more aggressive and fought his way through more swiftly. The problem for him now is that he's over a second back from Garrett Gerloff. But 7th position for Alvaro Bautista as we return to the fight now. Oh, big move there from Chaz Davies. That was very bold through turn number 2, where we've seen plenty of incidents already this weekend so far. And Davies a little bit aggressive there on Scott Redding, and I suspect that Ducati versus Ducati, Scott Redding won't be too happy about that.
How's your confidence, Chaz? It's pretty good if you're making a move through turn 2, and certainly for Davis now he needs to just get his head down, make sure he's able to go with Top Rack, because Scott Redding at this stage of the race, his pace just hasn't come into the kind of pace that you would expect from him. With the Kawasaki's down in the 1 minute 50s, he's been half a second a lap slower than them all the way through. This is the move from Chaz Davies. Keep an eye on the number 7, carries that speed on the run through turn 1, sets up the move into turn 2, leaves Scott Redding with absolutely no choice, but also no way to attack back. Good riding from Chaz.
Scott Redding was shaking his head as that move was made. I don't know whether that's because he feels he got a little bit offline there, or whether he feels Davies was too aggressive and cost him a bit of time. It certainly has cost Redding time. He's now 3.5 seconds down on your race leader Jonathan Rea. It's dark blue, light blue and red. Clearly it was a situation where Davies couldn't get the move done on either of the straights because the machines are similarly powered, so he had to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, and obviously Chaz Davies using that X tyre as well, so softer tyre compared to what Scott Redding has. Let's see if that actually plays out all the way through the race. If he can make that tyre last and set consistent pace, then Scott Redding's going to be very, very much challenged to try and get back through. Speaking to some of the riders about it, Jonathan Rea said that he's done race simulations with the X tyre and the Zero. He said that there wasn't too much of a difference in terms of your overall times for an 18-lap run, but that the difference was the feeling you had at the end of the race. That's why the Kawasaki riders have both gone with that SC0 tyre.
Still line astern, the two Kawasaki's as ducking out from the slipstream further back into turn 1. Leon Haslam thinks about a move on Tom Sykes, couldn't quite get it done. Haslam then still stalking Sykes as they come through turn number 2, but Leon Haslam has had a frustrating race so far, bottled up behind Tom Sykes. Sykes, in fairness to him, has managed to stabilise his pace, but it is quite clear that the Hondas are faster than the BMW at the moment. Moving the other direction, Michael van der Mark is now up into 11th position, and Eugene Laverty is at 12th. So that's a bit of a look at where the BMWs are for now. Alvaro Bautista, having already got clear of Tom Sykes, is now 0.6 of a second ahead of the lead BMW, and Leon Haslam still bottled up behind. So frustration for Haslam, who's seen Bautista come past the pair of them while he's still stalking Tom Sykes.
Yeah, a little bit further down the order as well, Andrea Locatelli making some progress as well. He's just gone through in Eugene Laverty for 12th place. So the Supersport World Champion really adapting quite well here in his first race on a superbike.
That's genuine pace from Locatelli, who started 14th on the grid and has already come through on Luca Mayas, who started well, had a good Superpole session with P13, but dropped back to P17 in this race. And to be perfectly honest, that's more reflective, I would suggest, of where he's been through Friday practice here in Motorland Aragon. Back at the front of the field, Jonathan Rea is giving another little spurt just to try and rattle the confidence of Alex Lowes behind him, but Alex Lowes is like a dog with a bone. He will not give up on that top spot, so this is going to be a race that you fancy is going to go down to the wire. Lowes has got to stay error-free to stick with the master Jonathan Rea, Superbike's all-time most successful rider. Razgat Lioglu third, a little bit of an isolated third now for him, ahead of Chaz Davies, who's trying to bridge the gap. Scott Redding bottled up now with Gerloff, Bautista, Sykes, Haslam, Rinaldi. That's turning into a separate group, and Redding really struggling at this stage down in 5th position.
Yeah, Redding's pace once again half a second, 0.6 of a second slower than the race leaders. He doesn't have that grip right now, and bear in mind he's using the same tyre as the Kawasaki's. All the other riders around him have that softer tyre, but the race leader is using the same tyre. So for Scott Redding right now, just a little bit of a struggle. Track temperature is starting to creep up again. We've gone up another couple of degrees since the race started, so in the next while this is when it could start to get a little bit slick out there for the riders.
Redding is relying on degradation for the riders around him if he's to take a podium place. Slight mistake by the looks of it there from Alex Lowe's, and Jonathan Rea's just got a couple of extra bike lengths. One retirement in this race so far, Tito Rabat. That looks like the second, as Tati Mercado despondently brings the MIE Racing Honda back into the pits. Mercado's never been on the pace throughout this weekend. He's always been 3 or 4 seconds per lap out of contention. He was running at the back of the field 6 seconds off Loris Cresson. We know that Tati Mercado is a great deal better than that. Once again, that's not a good outlook for the MIE Honda Racing outfit. Watching the lead gap, it's fluctuating somewhat. Looks as though these two have different areas of the circuit where they are strong, but this is the first time that the gap has been up to half a second, and Jonathan Rea says it's hammer time on lap number 8, as 7/10 of a second is your new gap.
Yeah, Jonathan Rea just has that little bit of an edge right now. He's been able to pull out another few tenths of a second on this lap. We saw those have that little bit of a bobble earlier on, and maybe the tyres just starting to go off, and with a gap of almost 2.5 seconds behind him to Toprak Razgadioglu, this is where you need to just dig in, make sure you're able to stay with Rea for as long as possible, and see if you're able to maintain that pace. As you can see there, 10 laps to go as we come across the line.
Come across the line with an opportunity to see the riders in the background there. Razgatlioglu still the best part of a second ahead of Chaz Davies. Davies though kicking on, made a little bit of ground through that last sector just to get the gap back down below that 1 second marker. Scott Redding is 1.2 seconds further back from Davies, with Gerloff Bautista for close attendance, and Bautista, faster than the 2 men ahead of him, is really hunting down Garrett Gerloff. So I fancy that's where the next fight on track is going to be for 5th, 6th and 7th positions. Bautista on the move.
Yeah, Bautista's got his eyes on top 5 spots here on the Honda. The big thing for him is, as the race progresses, we know that he manages the tyre really well. He's one of the lightest riders on the grid. He can use that X tyre to its maximum throughout the course of the race. We know he goes really well here in Aragon as well. So certainly for Bautista, he can eye that top 5 spot. He's got the fastest bike down the long straights here. That also gives him a big advantage.
Podium in race 2 of the Aragon round for Alvaro Bautista in 2020. That is really where the action is at this stage of the race, and we pick up Alvaro Bautista now, closing on Garrett Gerloff. Still 0.6 of a second Gerloff back from Redding. If Bautista can get through on Gerloff, might have an opportunity to pick off Scott Redding as well. So Bautista will be trying to use his lightweight frame. They drop down through the corkscrew. He'll tuck right onto the tail of Garrett Gerloff. This could well be candy from a baby heading into the final 2 turns. It's the power of the Honda. We know that Alvaro Bautista has been fastest through the speed traps for much of this weekend. He ducks to the outside now of Garrett Gerloff as they come into the final 2 turns, and Alvaro Bautista is released up into 6th position. He's got to get it stopped coming off the final turn. Gerloff will try to go the long way round, see if he can get it squared off and the run into turn number 1, but I do think that Alvaro Bautista will now stretch his legs, and indeed that is the case. A nice clean move from Alvaro Bautista, as we've seen so many times before from Bautista in WorldSBK, utilising his lightweight frame and indeed his top end speed to breeze through on the straight.
Yeah, we move into the second half of the race. At the front of the field, Rea's been able to open up a gap of 1.5 seconds. Lowe's pace last time around, he lost a full second to Jonathan Rea, so he really does need to dig in now, because Toprak Razgadioglu is on a charge. Last time around, Toprak was the fastest rider out there in that lead group.
So Toprak Razgatlioglu, the fastest of the top 3, as you say, and starting to hunt down both Alex Lowe's in particular. Only makes minor gains over Jonathan Rea, who's got that metronomic pace as usual out in top spot, and that's exactly what Rea needed to do. At this stage it looks as though he's broken Alex Lowe's, and this is where the fight is. 5th, 6th and 7th positions, all still covered by less than a second. This is going to be our 3rd retirement of the race. Samuele Cavalieri, and he was actually next in the order ahead of Mercado and Cresson. Dropped back behind Cresson and now pulls into the pits. So Cavalieri with problems, the 3rd retirement of race 1 in this 2021 campaign.
Yeah, and just at the front, Toprak once again taking large chunks out of those on this lap as well. He's taken in almost 0.5 seconds in the first half of the lap, so Toprak really is on a charge. Be interesting to see what's happening with those, whether or not that tyre's just started to go off. Now that the track temperature is increasing, it becomes more and more difficult for all the riders out there, so we'll see what's happening with those. You can see his teammate Jonathan Rea still able to maintain that consistent pace in the 1:51s.
Just over 8 laps to go then here in Motorland Aragon, coming towards the completion of lap number 10. That was the pace graphic you saw there from Scott Redding. Redding currently down in 5th position, and Redding under pressure from Bautista and Gerloff. The gap is now down to 0.3 of a second between Lowe's and Razgatlioglu. We could have a passing opportunity very soon indeed. Rea is away and gone. Forget about him for the moment. It's Lowe's versus Razgatlioglu for P2, and unfortunately for Alex Lowe's, he's tumbling backwards. He's slower than all of the riders in the top 10, and Lowe's hitting real trouble.
Yeah, Lowe's is going to be a sitting duck here for Toprak. Toprak's obviously got good pace, and he's been able to manage that XCX tyre really well through the course of the opening half of the race. But for Lowe's, that's where he needs to be able to see if he's able to hold on, if he's able to at least give himself a chance of being able to fight on with Toprak. Toprak's through into second spot in the top of the shot. You can just about see a flash of blue.
So Razgatlioglu through on Lowe's then. We're watching Jonathan Rea, who's 2.5 seconds clear of Lowe's. Lowe's versus Razgatlioglu, but that was pretty straightforward in favour of Toprak. Chaz Davies behind will be the next man to try and pick off Alex Lowe's, and I think that might come pretty swiftly as well. If Davies can get tagged onto the tail of Lowe's down the back straight, it could be as soon as that. We've got 0.7 of a second now separating second to 4th positions, and that's where the fight is out on track.
Yeah, it's really unfortunate for Lowe's considering how competitive he was in that initial third of the race, so it'll be interesting to see what the issue is for him afterwards, because he's out there on that SC0 tyre, the same as what Jonathan Rea's running, so it's definitely going to be something that's holding him back at this stage of the race.
Toprak, as you can see, a bit of a wheelie there as they come onto the back straight. That's where he crossed the white line and saw his fastest time deleted earlier on today in the Superpole session. Lowe's has done well to stick with Toprak since being passed earlier on in the lap. Davies it is who will still have the top-end pace advantage, you fancy, over Lowe's directly ahead of him. We saw the way he has breezed up the field in the early stages of this race, having initially dropped back. Lowe's looking to the inside of Razgatlioglu into turn 1, not close enough for the moment at least, and this three-way fight for second position continues. Don't take your eye off this for even a moment. Davies gets himself a little bit deep there into turn 1 and drops back from Lowe's, so it's not going to be through turn 4. It's going to have to be towards the back end of this lap now for Chaz Davies.
For Chaz Davies, you'd expect maybe into the wall. He's going to try and make a move into that left-right section, but right now for Lowe's, he is doing a good job of being able to dig in and go with Toprak's pace, but the last 3 laps he's been down in the 1:52s. Typically that's been the kind of pace where we've seen riders fall off a cliff in terms of what they have from the tyre underneath them, and for Lowe's this is when it becomes really important just to be able to come away with good points on a day where he's got a good bike underneath him.
0.2 of a second at the moment is the gap between Lowe's and Davies. No opportunity for Davies to come through there at least. Still Alex Lowe's consolidating his pace, and important for Lowe's that he digs deep now. As we've said, this is lap 12 of 18. He is still inside the podium positions. He's actually recovering on the tail of Razgatlioglu. This fight for second for Alex Lowe's might not be over just yet.
Well, for Lowe's, it's all about damage limitation whenever the tyre starts to drop like that. Maybe he's been able to find a way to be able to just have it where he can get it back into an operating window. He's up against 2 riders with the SCX tyre, so that's going to be a big challenge for them to manage to make this tyre last for 18 laps.
Lap 12 of 18. Alex Lowe's has already been passed by Toprak Razgatlioglu for second position. He's got Chaz Davies for company, currently sitting in 4th. The Turkish rider, as you can see, having made up ground hand over fist in this race in conventional style. We do tend to see that from the number 54 working his way through. Started in 10th, he's up in 2nd. I don't think he's going to get to Jonathan Rea, barring disaster for the reigning world champion. He's looking good to be a ton up at the end of race 1 of the 2021 campaign. But Lowe's coming back strong here. Lowe's has a look to the inside of Toprak into turn 1, and Chaz Davies menacing on the tail of the pair of them.
Yeah, back down into the mid 1:51s for Lowe's. So as we could see on that lap, he did seem to make a little bit of a step forward, and maybe that grip now just starting to level out a little bit for him, but certainly he went off the boil for a few laps, but he's been able to really collect himself now whenever he's up against it with Toprak and Chaz in close proximity to him.
And Chaz Davies looks to be struggling the first half of the laps at the moment, keeps dropping off the tail of Alex Lowe's before coming back onto him in the second half, where the top end speed is advantageous on that Ducati. Davies, remember, is the top running Ducati rider because Scott Redding is down in 5th position at the moment, and he has now got Alvaro Bautista on his tail. Bautista's got over half a second on Garrett Gerloff, and fair play to Tom Sykes as well, who's running well in 8th position. Michael Ruben Rinaldi and Leon Haslam rounding out your top 10. Michael van der Mark is best of the rest in 11th, but starting to come under some pressure from Andrea Locatelli. We're watching the battle for second. Razgatlioglu defending now against Alex Lowes, who had a bit of a blot on his copybook with a couple of weaker, slower laps in which he was the slowest rider, in fact, in the entirety of the top 10. But Lowes has come back at them now, and we've got these three riders separated by just half a second. Davies going in deep there as they come down the hill, and that may have cost him an opportunity to be close enough to Alex Lowes to make a strike into the final two turns. Lowes tucked in behind Razgatlioglu, but for the moment at least the opportunity not presenting itself for Lowes to recover that place.
Yeah, for Lowes, he's done really well these last couple of laps. Since Toprak came through, he's been able to use him as a really good yardstick to base what he has to do out there. Just seeing Eugene Laverty's had a technical problem, so that'll be him out of the race. You can see him just falling down the timing tower on the left-hand side of the screen. Not the first technical he's had this week.
Lowes into turn one, still menacing on the tail of Razgatlioglu, seems to make up a fair amount of time into the final two turns, and then is very close into the first bend, but just can't squeeze through for the moment at least. So this fight continues. Razgatlioglu, Lowes and Davies. Separate battle also continuing for fifth position between Scott Redding, the man who replaced Alvaro Bautista in that Ducati factory outfit, and the Spaniard directly behind him in P6. And Tom Sykes is also coming back into this race. He's another rider lapping in the 1 minute 51.5s, and that has seen him gain ground on Garrett Gerloff, who is a little bit isolated or dropping back now from the groups up ahead of him. Lap 14 of 18, Razgatlioglu, Lowes and Davies still in that order.
Yeah, and certainly for these three riders now, it is a case of we're into the last 5 laps. You've got 4.5 laps now to try and figure out what you have to do, how much grip's underneath you. The pace right now from Toprak in those 1 minute 51s, that's a fast pace in the final third of any race here in Aragon. So he's managed that tyre really well up to this point. Same for Chaz Davis. Lowes has managed to bring his pace back in line with where it has to be, but does he have enough confidence to actually try and make an attack? He looks quite good on the exit from turn 1 up the hill. Maybe he'll have to try and make his moves into the likes of turn 5.
Mentioned Eugene Laverty pulling up. He is the fourth retirement of our race. Tito Rabat, Tati Mercado, Samuele Cavalieri and Eugene Laverty. Further back down the order, Tom Sykes has just picked off Garrett Gerloff for 7th position, and further back Axel Bassani through on Isaac Vinales. So a couple of changes lower down the field. In fact, Gerloff is really struggling here. Garrett Gerloff loses out on 8th position as well to a resurgent Michael Ruben Rinaldi. So Sykes and Rinaldi running the leader's pace in the mid 1 minute 51s, and Garrett Gerloff, who's dropped off by about half a second a lap, is punished as a result. Firstly dropping off the tail of Bautista, and then picked off by Sykes and Rinaldi on lap 14.
Yeah, Gerloff, one of the riders out there on the X tyre, so quite possible that he's just pushed a little bit too hard in the 18-lap race, and they're struggling for that grip. It's very easily done. That's why it was a bit of a knife edge for some of the riders, and that's typically why you see the likes of Jonathan Rea take the conservative approach, use that SC0 tyre just to make sure that he's able to go out there and have a tyre underneath him all the way through the race. But if you're a little bit further down the field, sometimes you've got to roll the dice.
Yes, it looks as though Rea is well on his way towards victory here today. This is the battle for 5th position. We rejoin Scott Redding holding 5th place ahead of Alvaro Bautista. Watching on board with Scott Redding here as Bautista stalks his prey, about a 1/10 or so of a second per lap faster at the moment. And when Bautista really does get onto the tail of Redding, there is going to be an opportunity, you fancy, on the back straight. Bautista not quite close enough for the moment at least, as we see Alex Lowes still hassling, still harrying Toprak Razgatlioglu. This is a mature ride from the Turkish representative to defend that P2, because it does look as though Lowes is the man with the pace for now.
Was actually really good, as you can see on the run down into that downhill section. Lowes was willing to be aggressive on the front end. He's got confidence on the braking point now. He didn't really have that last year. That shows the kind of improvement that Kawasaki has made for him over the winter.
Razgatlioglu, Lowes and Davies on lap 15. This is the closest Lowes has been for some laps now. He's brave, but he's not quite as brave as Toprak on the brakes, and Razgatlioglu gets it stopped. That was a real opportunity for Alex Lowes. He's been consistently fast coming off the final turn. He's been consistently close to Toprak going into turn 1. This is a second opportunity now for Alex Lowes, and he's not going to let this one slip. They're side by side into turn 1 at the end of the pit straight though. It's Razgatlioglu who is a demon on the brakes and still hold firm in P2.
I'll tell you what, it's not easy for Alex Lowes in there. You've got Chaz Davis behind you, possibly the best breaker in WorldSBK. Toprak's not bad on the front end either, so to try and make these moves is tough. He's going to try it into 5.
Turn 4 then for Alex Lowe's, ducking through on Razgatlioglu, who immediately responds, and that's what Toprak had to do, was immediately get back in front of Alex Lowe's, because it is the number 22 Kawasaki that is the faster of the two at this stage of the race. He might not have been able to get the job done into 2 of the heavier braking points, but Lowe's is clearly the faster man. He's got to shake off Davies. He's got to attack on the final 3 laps.
This is really impressive from Lowe's, considering what happened in the middle of the race whenever he was all the way down into the 1 minute 52s at one stage. Looked like it was going to be difficult for him to collect it, get himself back into the fight, but once Toprak came past, he latched onto the back of him, and now he's given himself a chance to try and make some moves. This is where he came close last time around.
This must be attempt number 4 from Alex Lowe's, and still Toprak manages to hold on the brakes, just about getting through and across the front of him. Toprak has not ridden the optimum line though there. Lowe's is able to sweep through. He's significantly faster. Where can Alex Lowe's strike? It's not going to be down the hill. Davies, while these two are dicing it out over second position, is closing in to Lowe's for third. We've got Yamaha, Kawasaki, Ducati, evenly matched machines for race pace here in Aragon, the opening race of the season. Lowe's tried a lap ago on Toprak, couldn't get it done into the final 2 left-handers. He's even closer this time around. Lowe's dives through on the inside. Toprak switches to the inside. Lowe's has to lift it up ever so slightly, and Toprak responds. These two are dicing for position. They've swapped and changed on a few occasions already. At the start of lap 17, Toprak tries to switch to the inside down the straight to defend against Alex Lowe's, but Lowe's will not be fended off, and finally Alex Lowe's makes his move stick. Toprak may well try to respond into the 4th turn. He knows that if Lowe's is given clear air, he may well escape away. The 22 Kawasaki is looking good enough at this stage of the race. Toprak is seen off by Alex Lowe's and may also now have to defend from Chaz Davies. And I tell you what, Scott Redding and Alvaro Bautista both gaining behind. These are going to be 2 final laps to remember.
Yeah, the last few laps, Redding's been able to pull in 3-4 tenths of a second a lap. He's edging himself closer to Chaz Davies. If they battle with one another, the Ducati and the Honda are going to be right there.
Alex Lowe's then, as they come through once again, down the hill, right and then left. And it looks as though Scott Redding is really on a charge. As you said, the riders ahead of him running in the 52s, Redding still in the 51s, gaining 2 tenths of a second in that last sector alone. And Scott Redding is now right on the tail of Chaz Davies for 4th position. We've got a 4-rider fight for 2nd place. Just over a lap to go. Lowe's, Razgatlioglu, Davies looking vulnerable. We saw these 2 Ducatis swapping earlier on, with Davies at that stage of the race the faster of the 2, but it's Redding who's got the pace in the closing stages, and this is where his decision on tyres starts to pay dividends for him, and we've got that meet in the middle situation. Lowe's in 2nd, Razgatlioglu in 3rd, Davies under pressure from Redding, 2 evenly matched machines, but it's Redding who will have the slipstream and probably the better run coming onto the back straight as well. Davies holds on the brakes. Can he defend the inside line coming off the final turn? No, he can't. Davies has generally preferred the wider sweep, should give him some momentum into turn 1, but Scott Redding is through for 4th position. Rea, Lowe's, Razgatlioglu, Redding and Davies, your order going into the final lap here in Motorland Aragon.
You have to wait 7 months for racing to come back. It's been a good race so far, still a lap to go. See if Toprak's able to get somewhere close enough to try and attack onto Alex Lowe's. See if Chaz Davies can try and answer back on Scott Redding.
Tom Sykes has come through on Alvaro Bautista. Bautista's hit problems. Bautista has hit problems. He was running well up in 6th position, fighting with Tom Sykes and trying to close down the riders up ahead of him, and it looks as though Alvaro Bautista has crashed in the 1st sector, possibly out turn 2. Razgatlioglu was always going to try and make a move on Lowe's. He just dives through the first time he's close enough. Lowe's immediately responds. Brilliant racing between the green Kawasaki of Alex Lowe's and the blue Pata Yamaha of Razgatlioglu, and Toprak on the 54 is back into P2. Where can Lowe's answer back?
Well, for Lowe's, he's going to have to try it on the run into the wall, but he hasn't been close enough to use that break point to be able to be aggressive against Toprak. This is where he's had a run a few times on Toprak. Toprak able to run around the outside though.
Oh, and he's done it again, Razgatlioglu. Lowe's, I think, had moved across the path of Toprak, but Toprak still came around the outside with a screech of brake dust, and it's Razgatlioglu and Lowe's holding one another up that are now presenting a golden opportunity to Scott Redding as we head towards the final sector. Lowe's building himself up. He's on the tail of Toprak. There's less than a bike length between them. I don't think Redding is quite close enough to stake a claim for a podium position. Lowe's certainly is close enough to challenge Razgatlioglu. He's going to go to the outside of him. Two left-handers still to go. Razgatlioglu aggressively across the front of Alex Lowe's, who's going to have to try and run it into the line. Up front, it's Jonathan Rea heading towards a century. Jonathan Rea takes his 100th victory in WorldSBK, and Alex Lowe's is through on Toprak Razgatlioglu in the run down to the line. A brilliant first race of the 2021 season.
Unbelievable opening race of the year. You can see for Jonathan Rea, he's been able to use that pace all the way through the race. He ended up 4 seconds clear at the flag for his 100th victory in WorldSBK. But what a battle behind for second spot. Those final 5 laps, we saw the positions trade quite often between all those riders. Scott Redding does a really good job to come away with fourth place after what was a pretty tough race for him. Picked off Chaz Davis in those final laps, but it was the Lowe's versus Razgatlioglu battle. Considering Toprak has struggled so badly at Aragon in the past, to take his first podium finish in that sort of style was really impressive.
Someone let a little bit of air out of the tyres on the number 1 bike, because I tell you what, that fight for second position was worthy of a race victory. Alex Lowe's superb. I really did think that when Razgatlioglu got through and Lowe's couldn't manage to make that move into the final 2 turns, I didn't think he was going to be able to get the run off the last bend and to the line, but he did it superbly.
Yeah, really impressive. It'll be interesting to see what happened in that final corner. Obviously, we cut away to see Rea come across the line, but in that last corner, there's so many different lines you can take, and clearly for Lowe's, he was able to probably take that outside line and just cut back across, use the drive through, a bit like what Chaz Davis tried to do on Scott Redding. But whenever you've got different manufacturers out there with the Kawasaki versus the Yamaha, it's a lot easier to try and use the advantages of your bike compared to whenever it was Redding against Davis and you've got the same bike underneath you.
Alvaro Bautista crash in the closing stages, and unfortunately for him, that's been an all too familiar sight in his seasons in WorldSBK, and it's kind of the tortoise and the hare between himself and Leon Haslam, with all due respect to Haslam, of course, but Leon's picked up the points and Bautista hasn't.
Yeah, for Bautista, he's trying to latch onto the back of that podium scrap. He had been racing with Scott Redding all the way through. Redding, obviously, with that zero tyre, slightly harder than what Bautista was on, and maybe for Scott, he just had that little bit more grip underneath him, a little bit easier for him to pull out a little bit of time and close on the riders in front. Bautista could well have just been trying a little bit too hard to go with them in that final lap. We saw as they came into the final lap, he had just lost touch slightly, so clearly trying to be very aggressive at the start of the lap to give himself a chance.
It did appear on a few occasions last season that he was in some respects outriding the bike, and that's when you put yourself at risk of that kind of incident.
Yeah, and you can see for Jonathan Rea, that's why he doesn't make those mistakes. He settles for what he can get, and obviously more often than not it's been race wins for Jonathan since he joined Kawasaki. But this is a moment for him to remember, and a moment for everyone else to look at just what it takes to actually get to the level that we see from Rea. 100 race wins, it's absolutely unique. No one's come close to that in WorldSBK.
Yes, I remember Rea saying in his autobiography that achieving the record or breaking the record set by Carl Fogarty was something that was so far above anyone's expectations at the start of the Kawasaki project. But here he is, Jonathan Rea, having achieved 100 wins, and you talked about it as a monkey on his back, and he's got that well and truly off with this victory here today, and celebrations already in the first race of the season sets us up for Jonathan Rea looking for that 7th world title.
Yeah, well, for Rea the goal is obviously going to be the World Championship, but this is a track where Kawasaki obviously made a step forward last year, but to be able to come away with a race victory here is always impressive for them, considering that in the past it's been Ducati country. Chaz Davis has dominated here, Alvaro Bautista as well. Kawasaki makes small incremental steps year on year. We're at Motorland Aragon, they come away with a 1-2.
Yes, fantastic performance from KRT. In the early stages of the race, it looked extremely likely that we were going to get a Rea Lowe's 1-2, but Lowe's went off the boil really midway through the race, and other riders took a little bit longer to drop off in their pace. Lowe's then determined as the second half of the race came round, managed to stick with Toprak, eventually passes him off the final corner. And they both enjoyed it by the sounds of it. Alex saying that was good. Of course it was. He got the second position in the end.
Yeah, but a good battle between them. And Toprak's always a good rider to have that scrap with. And certainly for someone like Lowe's, he'll always talk about whenever you're able to get into a battle with that confidence that the other rider is always able to control where everything's going to fall in place. And certainly what we saw once again, and that was total respect from both of them. They knew that there were going to be a hard battle between them, but they wanted to make sure that they were able to give it everything they had. And Toprak coming away with Podium here. It's a great start to the season.
Rea reaches 100 then. See the hashtag in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen as Jonathan Rea celebrates that 100th victory in WorldSBK. A quite astonishing performance from him throughout his career, and particularly, of course, with KRT. What's really been good to see on this lap of honour is how Rea has enjoyed the celebration with the marshals. Marshals and volunteers play essential roles, of course, in keeping these events up and running, and particularly during the current time in the pandemic and without spectators. Well, admittedly, they get a unique view of the action. The only people allowed in who are fans to watch, but inevitably it's a complicated time to be involved. So great to see Jonathan Rea celebrating with them. 100 victories for Jonathan Rea in WorldSBK. Really, the mind boggles. Admittedly, now with 3 races per weekend, he has aided slightly, but the majority of those have been achieved pre-Superpole race.
Yeah, and you have to look at it as well. It's 1 in 3 races that he started in this championship he's been able to win. That kind of dominance doesn't come by accident, and being able to stick with the same team, the same people around him at Kawasaki for what's now his 7th season has been the foundations for all that success. But you have to remember, whenever he was on the Honda, he was able to win a lot of races for Tenkate as well. He was very impressive with them, and that's what gets you the opportunity to then move to a team like Kawasaki and have this kind of success.
More milestones as this season goes on. I'm sure it would take quite something quite special to reach the 5,000 points, but I think that's probably the next major milestone for Jonathan Rea. The T-shirts were on hand, the flags were on hand. There's no doubt that the expectation was he'd do it at some stage this weekend, but did we expect him to win the first race of the season for the first time since 2017?
I think coming to Aragon, you couldn't really put money on it, but it's also no surprise when Jonathan's able to win. He had really good pace here last year, set the lap record, won races, and looked really complete around this track. And I think certainly for what we saw once again today, they went conservative with the tyre compared to some of the riders around him, but it meant that he had grip all the way through the race. His pace was nice and consistent. But probably the most important thing was he had that confidence to go from it right from the start of the race, knowing that the tyre would last all the way through the race. Maybe if you have the SCX tyre on underneath you, maybe you don't have that same level of confidence to try and push hard, open a gap at the start. But the 2 Kawasaki riders opened the gap of 2 seconds in the opening couple of laps. And when you give Jonathan Rea a buffer like that, where he only has to race to his pit board, it's very difficult to beat him.
Jonathan Rea, then your winner here today. Alex Lowe's in second. Wish I'd done that each way bet we discussed before we got underway with racing here today, because I'd be quids in. We did fancy Lowe's chances on the basis of the consistent paces he's shown during the weekend. Tough baptism of fire for a first day in Ducati factory colours for Michael Ruben Rinaldi. He walks back towards his pit box somewhat disconsolately. He was in a good mood at the start of the weekend, but I suspect that may have shifted somewhat after finishing only 7th position in race number 1. Up ahead of him, Tom Sykes in 6th, Chaz Davies in 5th, Scott Redding in 4th. Your top 3, Toprak, Razgatlioglu, Alex Lowe's, and of course Jonathan Rea. And a commanding victory margin for this opening race of the season as well for Rea, who can begin the celebrations in earnest, but not too much, of course, because he's got more work to do with 2 more races tomorrow.
2 more races tomorrow, but certainly a lot of confidence from him to be taken from this kind of success. And for Kawasaki as well, it shows that the small steps that they made with their bike over the winter have made a big step forward for them, just in terms of the consistency that they can have and the feeling and the confidence that it gives the riders.
Chaz Davies in the background of that shot. That is because he is the top independent rider. It does seem very strange to be saying that about Chaz Davies at this stage of his career. Not many drop back to a satellite career, having been as successful during their spell in WorldSBK as Chaz Davies has. He's certainly into uncharted territory. Good fight between himself and Scott Redding to be top Ducati here today. Davies soaring through in the early stages, Redding later coming back at him, and it's 1-0 to the factory Ducati man. Third position then here today, Toprak Razgatlioglu, the latest podium of his career and his best ever result here in Aragon.
Toprak, Aragon has been such a difficult track in years past, but today you're absolutely incredible. What a way to start the season.
First race, I'm really happy because normally I'm not really strong this track, but today also we work with my team, and good job also because we see I am here, I'm a podium first race, and this is important for me because now tomorrow I am coming very strong because I see some problem in the race, and today I'm happy. See you tomorrow.
Congratulations, Toprak.
See you tomorrow, Toprak. 25th podium of his career. He also breaks the 700-point mark for his World SBK career. This is his 84th race start, and there is confirmation of that statistic, that 25th podium for Toprak. I think the most important thing is the fact that he's done it at a circuit he doesn't generally favour, as Anthony was alluding to, and myself before the interview.
Yeah, it's impressive from Toprak. This is a track where he's never really looked easy on the bike, whether it was on the Kawasaki or the Yamaha. So to make a big step forward like that shows the hard work that they put in all the way through the winter, and that's what Yamaha need. They need to just make sure that they iron out all the issues they've had, and they can just be good and consistent all the way through.
Scott Redding takes 4th position here today. At one stage it was looking pretty alarming for Redding, who was dropping backwards, and I talked about riders meeting in the middle, those who'd gone for the hair approach and raced off on a softer tyre, and those who took played the long game and eventually came back through, and Scott Redding was one of those for 4th position. But certainly coming on strong off the final turn was Alex Lowes, and he's back on the podium for 2nd place.
Alex, you had to work hard for that one. I think it's a bit of an understatement, that, but what a way to start the season. Kawasaki 1-2 and really strong race all out.
Yeah, before the race I didn't know what to expect. We obviously tested here a lot, but the conditions have changed, so you don't really know, and it's always that excitement of the first race. I felt quite good at the start. I got a good start. I stayed with Jonathan, and then after a few laps I encountered some big problems on the front. I had 2 or 3 big slides. I just thought to myself, it's the first race of the year. I saw I had a bit of a gap. I knew they was going to catch me, but I decided just to be smooth in the middle. And I was thinking, when somebody passes me, just try to stay with them and use them to fight for the end of the race. Then when it was Toprak, I thought, oh great, because you know what he's like on the brakes. But we had a really good battle. Some parts he was faster, some parts I was faster. I could see maybe the last 3 laps he was spinning a lot, so I didn't want to pass him before the last corner, and then he was turning better, so he was going to switch me, so I decided to wait on the outside, be a little bit patient, and get a bit of a run onto the straight. So fantastic battle. When you've not when you've not had a race, some race action for a few months, to have a battle like that is great, and it just really gets you the taste for it for the start of the season. So massive thank you to the Kawasaki racing team, and we'll try and improve them smooth a few areas and come back out tomorrow. But it was great fun. I really enjoyed it.
Congratulations, Alex.
Thank you very much. Cheers, guys.
Oh, thank you to Alex Lowes for providing some great entertainment in that race. A very cerebral approach to the race as well. As you heard from Lowes there, it was a thinking man's game today. He knew he didn't have the pace to match Jonathan Rea, so he settled into a rhythm that he thought could keep him in contention for the latter stages of the race. And great to hear his plan, factoring in the strengths of Toprak essentially, and knowing what his opportunity was in the drag race to the line. It was a bold decision, but it paid off handsomely. Alex Lowes then takes 2nd position here today, with Toprak Razgatlioglu behind him in 3rd. But your opening race winner of the season, for the first time since 2017, he takes victory in race number 1 of a campaign, and it's Jonathan Rea.
Johnny, I think the shirt says it all. 100 race wins, an absolutely unbelievable achievement.
Incredible, you know, what a race. I just felt from the start I really wanted it, so I put my head down, and yeah, it just came, you know, the rhythm at the beginning was good and I was going away, not too stressed, but then at the end I was surprised how much everybody was dropping, because I felt really slow but the gap was increasing. So what a way to be in the race. It doesn't happen like that normally. To reach 100 victories, that's a career milestone. I'm like so happy with that. And to do it here in Superbikes, it's amazing. So I guess it's Lewis Hamilton next, so good luck Lewis. And we'll see you back tomorrow for 2 more.
Huge congratulations, Johnny.
Thank you, cheers.
Jonathan.
Jonathan Rea then with that 100th race victory. Incidentally, I mentioned Toprak Razgatlioglu getting to 25 podiums. Alex Lowe's has also done the same here today, adding to his most recent podium in Manicourt from 2020. But for Jonathan Rea, certainly among the pantheon of greats, and as far as WorldSBK is concerned, the undoubted top man.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. 6 World Championships, 100 race victories, and closing in on that 200 podium is going to be his next target. But certainly for Jonathan Rea to be able to achieve this really is impressive, and I think for Kawasaki it shows just how consistent they've been. If you think back to Tom Sykes from 2012 onwards until now, Kawasaki for the last 10 years basically have been able to turn out race winners, world champions, and they've been able to do that just by maximising everything that they have at their disposal.
As you said though yesterday, maximising everything at their disposal, and Jonathan Rea is one of the key things that they have at their disposal. Leon Haslam couldn't match Rea 2 years ago, Alex Lowe's couldn't match Rea last season. You look back the couple of years before, obviously Tom Sykes regularly dispatched by Jonathan Rea, so it's Rea who is also the sort of catalyst for the success on the bike.
Yeah, and Rea makes the difference, and I think that's what we've seen at different times in the past. The top riders of any given era are always the ones that tend to find themselves on the best bike or the best car if it's in different championships, and then it's up to them to make the difference, and Jonathan's been able to do that. I think what's impressive for me is that at least with Kawasaki over the course of the winter they were able to evaluate how to make the other side of the garage a little bit stronger. They've made a big step forward in winter testing. Lowe's has talked about how it's felt much more like his own bike, and then coming into this weekend he's been fast all the way through the weekend, and I think Kawasaki are at the point hopefully where both riders are able to be fast all the way through the season, because the one thing for Jonathan Rea as well is he wants to be challenged, he wants to have those bar-to-bar battles and see what happens.
4th and 5th today, but a bit of a surprise not to see a Ducati on the podium here in Aragon.
A little bit of a surprise, but certainly with Scott Redding, whenever you saw the tyre sheet and saw an awful lot of riders out there in the X tyre, you knew it was going to be a bit of a challenge for him. He was patient in the race and it sort of came back to him, but he just gave himself too much work to do at the start.
Podium number 25 then for Toprak Razgatlioglu, who takes 3rd position here today. Also number 25 for Alex Lowe's, but only his 2nd here in Motorland Aragon, his 1st in a feature-length race around this circuit. So that all goes well, because neither of these two riders have necessarily had their best results around this track in past campaigns. But it's Jonathan Rea who once again starts the season as he means to go on. In this case, it's with victory, the 100th of his career. He was made to wait, he couldn't get it sealed and delivered through the Estoril weekend, which would have been, as I said previously, a neat way for him to cap off his 6th world title winning campaign. But he's done it at the start of 2021. That's a great way to lay down a marker, not least because of the margin of victory. Really did look dominant today, and he remarked that he felt slow at stages during that race, which is going to be very concerning for his rivals.
I think the one thing to always remember about JR is that he's not afraid of sticking the knife in. He's not afraid of a little bit of psychological warfare, and the best thing for him is just to be able to go out and win these races at tracks where he wouldn't have been as confident coming to Aragon as he would if we had started the season somewhere else, but to come away with a result like this just shows just how impressive they can be.
Yes, I think Jonathan Rea would have fancied a season opener in Portimao, for example. That would have been something that he would have enjoyed. Hasn't necessarily had the best of runs at Phillip Island or consistency in Australia, so the fact of the matter is that is our conventional season opener and has been for quite some time. But Motorland Aragon didn't disappoint.
Certainly not, and similar to last year, great day's racing to kick off the season.
Time for our national anthem, starting with the British for our race winner. And now the national anthem for your winning manufacturer.
The winning manufacturer Kawasaki, the national anthem of Japan.
Jonathan Rea then is your race winner with a pole position and a race victory. And now the Prosecco can be sprayed in style. And it's win number 100 for Jonathan Rea, who gets the title defence off to the best possible start.
Yeah, it's pretty much the perfect set for JR. He's been able to have the pole, the win, the fastest lap, and that 100th race victory. So able to tick all the boxes.
Jonathan Rea then will lead the championship after a single completed race. Still a long way to go, of course, but the psychological advantage is very much with the reigning champion already. What I will say is that Alex Lowes has been a relative match for Rea throughout this weekend so far, so don't rule out Alex Lowes as a potential contender, particularly in the Superpole race. He has a great record through Superpole races down the years. Jonathan Rea, your race winner, then banks 25 championship points ahead of Alex Lowes in second for 20. Toprak Razgatlioglu completes the podium. Scott Redding just 0.2 of a second back in the end, and Chaz Davies just 0.6 down. The master of Motorland takes P5. Michael van der Mark down in 11th position. His teammate Tom Sykes outscoring him and actually holding on well to places, it must be said. Full credit to Tom Sykes for a better ride than we've seen for him for some time. Several retirements, most notably Alvaro Bautista in the very closing stages, and that will be a galling loss of points for him because he was involved in the battle on just outside the top 5 places and concedes plenty of points by dropping from 6th. Jonathan Rea then up at the lead positions in the championship. 5 of the top 6 represent Great Britain, and Leon Haslam not too far behind either. Toprak Razgatlioglu is up there in 3rd. He's the outlier in the nationality stakes. Axel Bassani scoring 4 points on his WorldSBK debut. Andrea Locatelli taking 10th is top rookie. Isaac Vinales also doing a decent job. He was passed by Axel Bassani in the second half of the race. Kota Nazane and Luca Mayas also scoring. They round out your top 15 finishers. Nazane on his debut, and of course Mayas on his return to the class and at the start of his first full campaign. It's Chaz Davies who leads the independent riders rankings. Well, he took an award for the most positions gained last season, so he's already well on his way to another award in 2021. Teams Championship, KRT with a 1-2. And they therefore lead by a commanding margin after race 1 of the season. Independent teams, Team Go 11 through Chaz Davies, 11 points on the board. GRT Yamaha, once again, much as we saw last season, have 2 riders to represent them. Therefore, statistically at least, they have a chance of keeping up with Chaz Davies' score charts. Manufacturers Championship, Kawasaki score 25 points through Jonathan Rea. Yamaha score 16 through Toprak Razgatlioglu. Scott Redding scores 13 for Ducati. Tom Sykes with 10 for BMW. And obviously Leon Haslam, the lone scorer for Honda after the fall for Alvaro Bautista. A Hyundai-inspired rider for the most positions gained. Axel Bassani started all the way down in 20th, makes it up into the points. Toprak also gaining ground, started 10th, rode as high as 2nd, eventually finished 3rd. And Isaac Vinales from 19th on the grid is 3rd in the Hyundai-inspired rider rankings. That's always one to keep an eye on for the most entertaining riders, effectively, or perhaps those that don't qualify as well as they might have hoped. 2 Superbike races to look forward to tomorrow. Join us for the Tissot Super Bowl race just before 11 a.m. Or stick around with us this afternoon for Super Sports season opener.